Hello, please be advised that the following episode of Comic Book Movie Oblivion covers topics that shouldn't be listened to by anyone ever. No, by which I mean this is an episode that is suitable for adults only. So please, don't listen.
Hey, this is Living Trey.
Oh, too right, son.
Hey! hey! Oh, comes on, you're disgusting! Hey, I need to splash my boots. I've been keeping my legs together for half an hour.
Oh, well, that's a bleeding record.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We are your hosts, Jordan and Kumar. That's me.
And me.
And this week we are talking about Fat Slags from 2004. Fat Slags, if you couldn't hear what I just said because I giggled through it. By the way, we have a little bit of news. So everybody knows that Val Kilmer passed away. Richard Norton passed away about 2-3 days ago. The Australian martial artist who was the villain in City Hunter.
Oh!
And Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Vale.
He was also the fight coordinator on both Suicide Squad movies.
Holy shit.
Yep. So he was out there working. Okay, but we're not here to talk about Richard Norton or Val Kilmer this week.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Fat Slags. So this was a strip which appeared in the magazine Viz. So Viz is a English adult comic magazine.
A little like Mad Magazine, but a lot more risque.
Yeah. Well, I would say the more apt comparison would be like the Beano or Dandy.
Well, those were comics for children.
Yes.
But stylistically, it's similar to those. But in terms of content,
I would say it's like a parody of. As a person who doesn't know it very well, It seems to me to be a parody of the Beano.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like a grown-up parody with like toilet humor, profanity, nudity, like sex jokes.
Yes.
Mostly non-political.
Yes. Mostly. There's some political content.
Yeah.
And sort of lots of silly lots of like fake letters to the editor.
Yes. Those are the best bits, I would say, because I still follow the Viz Facebook account and they put those letters. They print those letters daily. They put up one of those things, and those are really
the top
funny.
tips or something.
Yeah.
Where it'll be advice, like a running joke advice, like fun-sized Mars bars make great regular-sized Mars bars for dwarves,
Right.
and and regular-sized Mars bars make great fun-sized Mars bars for giants.
Yeah.
And it'll just be printed week after week. This sort of ridiculous running gag.
Yes.
But among all this, there's also these kind of like naughty comics.
Yeah.
So about...
I'd say they're naughty, because there's full swearing, there's defecation, nudity, all that kind of stuff.
You don't tend to see a lot of genitals. You see a lot of bare breasts.
Yes, occasionally.
But you're right, it is pretty... it is pretty filthy, to be honest.
Very filthy. That's the
but
best
you wouldn't
word
call
for
it pornographic.
No, but I only have one issue of Viz here. This is a 2007 issue.
Okay.
So I first heard about it in the early 2000s, because I'm not British, of course.
Right.
Canadian. But when I was working with a lot of Brits in Japan, and they were like, hey, you like comics, you should check this out. And I was like, okay, what's this thing? Maybe I'd heard about it before that. I don't know.
Right.
This one actually has, I don't know where I got this. Maybe I got it from an op shop or something. From like a thrift store. It's got a US and Australian cover price on it. So I don't think this... I don't know what the heck this is.
An overseas one.
I don't know. But the weird thing is... Oh no, there is a pounds price on there as well.
Okay.
But, it's full of like ads for like phone sex lines and like porn DVDs and stuff and websites. All that stuff is in here, mixed in with all the fake ads as well. So so it's not pornographic in itself, but they're certainly advertising pornography in there.
Well, it's very definitely for adults, isn't it? Although I think a lot of adolescents read it.
This is. I had a big question about what are the reading conditions of Viz as I was reading these comics and flipping through this one issue that I picked up somewhere. Maybe I found it in the bin. I don't remember where this thing came from. How it got to my house.
That's what we'll tell. But that's what we'll tell your wife. Anyway, go on.
What are the reading conditions? Is this the kind of thing where you're stoned in your trashed apartment and you see one lying in the corner. So you're in your friend's apartment and there's one hanging out in the room somewhere, and you pick it up and you flip through it and read it for half a minute before you move on to something else. I'm not sure what the consumption of it looks like normally.
Well, I also don't know either, because I didn't know anything. I hadn't even heard of it until this week, essentially.
Whoa,
so everything I've been saying is stuff that I've learnt reading about online this week.
Okay.
I don't know. I do, reading about it online, it seems that, it's young men is its main target demographic. So straddling, I guess, the line between late adolescence, young adulthood, that kind of thing. You hear about a lot of kids kind of like nicking their dad's copy of Viz to read through it. As to the humour, I feel like with British comedy or English comedy, you kind of have two extremes. You've got incredible, biting, brilliant kind of witticisms and satire.
Yes.
And then you have like Little Britain, where it's men dressing up as women and
fat suits
and fat suits,
fart jokes, and
and there doesn't seem to be anything in the middle.
Yes. It really seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just the way what's getting exported. Maybe the middle stuff just doesn't travel overseas.
Perhaps. But this one's squarely in the fart jokes and carry on. Sort of like the carry on movies. It's all.
Well, those are all about double entendres and innuendos.
Well, there's plenty of those.
This is just like explicit, like.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, no, there are. You're right. There are the double entendres, but they're like
crass.
Yeah,
because it's meant to speak to. All right. Well, we could talk.
They know what they're saying. Like they don't say something. When they make a double entendre, it's like they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And all the other characters around will recognize it.
Yeah. Really, it feels similar to a bit of a carry-on kind of theme, but ratcheted up a bit more. Because they're always, there's catchphrases and things. One thing that they're always saying, the men who are always saying, "Wah-hey!"
Wah-hey, yes. Yes, and I knew British people that said that. I never heard the term "wah-hey" before.
They say it always. Like, this gross-looking... Everyone looks like Hagar the Horrible. It's the Bigfoot-style comics.
Yeah.
And everyone's always taking off their clothes. Lots of bums with band-aids on them and hair.
Yes.
And blokes going, "Way!"
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Anyway, now's a good time to talk about the eponymous Fat Slags.
Yes, we'll go with a little bit of the history of the magazine.
Oh, please, yeah.
So founded in 1979. Mm-hmm. By the 1990s, it seemed to hit its peak. So it's selling like 1.2 million copies an issue, apparently. Now it's down to like 50,000, which is similar to like X-Men numbers. We're selling like 1 million in the 90s.
All
and now
print media is now at that kind of numbers?
Yes. A lot of famous characters like Roger Melly, who was this crass TV host. Johnny Fart Pants, who would like propel himself with his farts.
Yep.
Buster Gonad was this guy with giant testicles that would somehow solve people's problems. It's actually called Buster Gonad and His Unfeasibly Large Testicles was the name of the...
So this is the kind of level of humour we're talking about.
Yeah. Sid the Sexist is another famous character who has these... He makes up these pickup lines that are just nonsensical.
Yeah.
And the women are like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he talks like he gets laid all the time, but he's actually a complete virgin.
Yes.
So during the 90s, during this peak period, there was also a Sid the Sexist cartoon, 5 episodes. There was a 5-episode Fat Slags stop motion, claymation. I actually watched one of these.
Yeah.
Hard work. I like claymation.
Oh.
I liked, and it looks like when you turn it on, it looks like you're going to get Shaun the Sheep, but it was hard work.
Oh.
But it sure looks good on the outside.
Okay.
Also during the peak years, when these cartoons were coming out, were selling in the millions of copies, there was a video game, which I just learned about coincidentally like 2 weeks ago.
Oh my god.
There was a Viz video game where you could play as Buster Gonad or 2 of the other characters as kind of it was on the Commodore 64.
Oh my god. It must be terrible.
Yeah. Well, apparently it's... Like, I saw the instruction book was really, like, funny, but the gameplay is apparently terrible. Yeah. But the game, it's... the presentation is good. The graphics look pretty good. So the Fat Slags were introduced in 1989.
Right.
This is issue 36, so they don't put out 40 issues in 10 years? I don't know if that's quite right. I pulled this off Wikipedia. So there are these 2 women, Sandra Burke and Tracy Tunstall,
Yes.
known as San and Trey. San is a little bit more sex crazy. Tracy is little bit smarter in the sense that, like, Butthead is smarter than Beavis.
Yes.
Like, just marginally.
Yes, that's a good comparison.
You've got these two complete idiots, and one of them is slightly more the brains of the operation.
It's more correct to say one's dumber than the other, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Yes. They live on a Shit Street.
It's literally called Shit Street.
It's literally called Shit Street, which I liked. It was just say it. It's just Shit Street.
It was very broad, the humour in this, yeah.
Yeah, they are totally sex mad.
Yes.
And they're all about eating junk food and drinking all the time.
Yes.
This is it. Their entire
like their
existence.
Chips with gravy, kebabs.
Yes.
Drinking constantly.
Yep.
Smoking constantly.
Yep.
And having sex constantly.
Constantly.
And being generally disgusting.
Yes.
There's a lot of really filthy dialogue.
Yes.
About body parts.
Yep.
And bodily functions.
Yep.
It's really broad and crass.
Yes. They are drawn like they have. They wear these tight tops, so it looks like they have
uniform,
four breasts.
basically.
Like they've got the.
They're very rotund.
Yes.
Like they're like beach balls. They're spheres.
Yes.
So they're really fat. Like comically so.
Yeah.
They've got huge legs, huge arms.
But they think they're super hot, and they think other women are unattractive and overweight. They complain about other women. But it seems like they... also, the rest of the world seems to agree with them. Like, no men ever seem to turn them down in the ones we've read. But I read on Wikipedia, it's apparently when men do turn them down, they accuse them of being gay or having small penises.
Yeah.
Is usually what happens.
It didn't happen in the comics we read, but it makes perfect sense. So, it would be an exaggeration to call this satire, but it's...
Maybe of a certain type?
It's kind of a send-up... So, Viz is from Newcastle. So, the magazine itself is based in Newcastle, it's published in Newcastle. Newcastle is a town in northern England, in the north.
Okay.
And there's a stereotype in England that people from the north are loud and stupid.
Right.
And speak incomprehensibly.
Right.
and so the Trey and Sam are kind of like this like a silly stereotype of on the one hand like a tasteless northern broad. Okay. And on the other also I saw this written a lot online that they're a kind of a send up of ladette culture. So girls that act like blokes. Okay. I don't know about that. I don't think the word ladette existed in the 80s. Right. I'm not sure this concept was really a thing. I think it's more just a thing about cultureless northerners send up. And it's fine because they themselves, although Graham Dury, who drew the comic and is the co-creator of the characters, he's not actually from the north. He's from the Midlands. He's actually from Nottingham, where my dad's from. Okay. Yeah. But he moved up to Newcastle to take a job on the comic. In fact, he was doing his PhD in botany at a university in Leicester, which is also in the Midlands. And I think he just got sick of that, and he liked to doodle, and he ended up being offered a job, and he took it, and he dropped out, and he still works on the comics, as far as I know. Right. Okay. Still one of the team of editors that run it.
Okay. Well, in this collection that we read, some of them were not. There was only a signature on one of them. It wasn't his signature, as far as I could tell. That was actually the Sid the Sexist one, but we'll talk a little bit about that.
Oh, right. That's because the other bloke does Sid the Sexist. Simon Donald, the co-founder, draws Sid the Sexist.
Okay. Okay. So I found this collection online, the Big Book of Big Fat Slags or something it's called. I can't remember. I'm looking at it right now, but
maybe they wear tight clothes, so they have a sort of uniform. Yes. Sam wears a cocktail dress. Yeah. And usually no underpants. So she does a lot of pratfalls and slapstick because it's funnier because her ass is always hanging out. For a given value of funnier, but anyway.
Look, there were some bits I laughed at. There's one scene where she's getting on a boat and they've unmoored the boat, so it's pulling away from
she does the splits.
port, and she does the splits, and
Yeah.
she says, "Ow, my snatch!" and she's being pulled
I
apart.
shouldn't laugh at that. Yeah, and I mean, it's not, again, they don't draw any female genitals. It's just a giant beach ball like buttocks sort of
Yeah.
on display.
Yeah.
But you do that. There is some scatological humor, as you pointed out. So
Yeah.
in that same story, they're on a boat. They think they've won a cruise in a wet t-shirt contest
Yes.
where Sam busts through the stage. Actually,
Yeah.
actually, that comes up in the film.
It
I just
does.
realised.
Yeah. Fall through the stage. Yeah. That
Not
gag
funny
is
in there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so because they win second prize, which they won because she'd gone backstage to give the judge. This episode should have had a content warning. She goes backstage to give the judge a blowjob.
Yeah.
So that she'll win, and the girl that won is already back there doing it. Comics is full of stuff like this.
Yeah.
Anyway, they can't figure out how they end up getting sort of like a nasty kind of barge on the Thames or something.
Yeah.
And like it has a small chemical toilet. They can't use it because they're so fat.
Well, it's also, she says her shits are so big that it wouldn't even 5 flushes wouldn't do it. So she actually shits overboard. She pulls down her pants and shits overboard.
Dirty.
But then it turns out that some kayaks were passing
kayaks are going
underneath,
by,
and now they've got these turds on the kayaks. And meanwhile, bystanders are looking at them like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
Actually, that's some people. Some people are horrified.
I think they were Southerners though. I think they were.
Oh. Okay.
They
Okay,
were
I'm starting to piece it
picnicking or
together.
something.
Okay, right.
At one point, a Londoner, they wreck a Londoner's yacht.
Yes.
They drive straight through it, and he catches up to them in a rowboat.
Yeah.
And he's like, "How are you going to make this?" He's yelling at them in like a Cockney. These are also written in
Like phonetic
accents.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they have Newcastle Geordie accents.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they have Geordie accents, but I can't really tell. But this guy, he's got a Cockney accent. He's not a Northerner. He's from London. But he's another. What do they call him in England? He's another chav, kind of like a bogan.
Right.
Because in exchange for them wrecking his yacht, they pay him off essentially by both having sex with him at the same time, and he's quite happy with that.
Yes. This happens all the time. One of them, if they find one guy, they'll trade the guy. The guy will end up having sex. It's usually this one particular guy, Baz, Barry Asquith, who's this jobless dude. He has a wife, Thelma.
Yep. Everyone's on the dole.
Especially the other male character that's just once in a while, Dave.
Yeah.
He's usually running some sort of welfare scam.
Yep. They're doing odd jobs while claiming the dole.
Yeah.
What they call it, the gyro. So they'll be painting a house and also collecting their dole money. And they'll show up to collect their dole money in like paint spattered overalls.
Right.
Chatting loudly about the work they're doing down the road, stuff like this. It's pretty... It's actually, I'm laughing talking about it, but I wasn't laughing when I was reading it. I think only one joke really made me laugh, and it's the same one with the boat. They find a camera and they take pictures of...
Yes.
And there's a sequence of photos where they've lined up a sequence of photos. It's like a no dialogue couple panel gag. So they see a fisherman, one of them dacks him, and then they give the thumbs down because his penis is so small, but then in the next photo she's having sex with him.
Yes. I laughed at that too. I laughed at the one where I laughed several times there's a crossover strip with Sid the Sexist.
Yes.
Where Sid somehow is convinced to try to be nice to women instead of using these lame pickup lines.
Yeah.
And he meets a nice girl in the park. Her name's Virginia Intactus. Or she's next door.
Virginia Intactus.
And he's like, okay, he's got an angel and devil on his shoulder, cartoon angel and devil, and they're like, be nice to her. The angel he's like, okay, would you like to go for a walk in the park, or would you like to go to the movies? Meanwhile, the fat slags end up getting a work at a movie theater.
As ushers.
It's as ushers, so it's like the worst combination because he's a virgin, and they're sex crazy. They're trying to get onto him.
Yeah.
He's trying to impress this girl by being like modest.
Yeah.
By being moral.
Yes, he's acting all chaste and and kind.
Yes, and there were some funny laughs just because of the situation that was really well set up. it was a house of cards where eventually he is dragged outside by the two women. But,
By Trey.
Yeah, but before anything can happen, the woman, his date comes out and finds
Well, his date comes out and finds him, and he's a quick shot, so he's finished.
Oh, that's right. Before anything happens. Yes.
Anything happened.
Yeah, yeah. There's another story in here where Sandra gets pregnant.
Yes, yes.
And they don't know who the father is, so they figure we'll just blame Baz for it.
Yeah.
I wrote down the grossest line I think in the book. There was another episode where I read a really gross line. I can't
remember.
Don't remember which one it was. It was like, geez, should I read this out loud? I'm going to read this one out loud.
Okay.
So they're like, hey, you got Sandra pregnant when you had sex with her last week.
Oh, isn't it? Because he said, I spunked in her.
He said, I chucked me muck up this'n, indicating that he actually did it in Tracy first, so there's no way he could have gotten Sandra
Plus,
pregnant.
he had a vasectomy anyway.
Plus,
he didn't even need that line.
He didn't even need that line. But that was wild. I never heard any of those words used, chucked or muck.
Up this'n.
Up this'n.
Yeah, there's a lot of that sort of stuff all through. Actually.
So they're telling
that's a standout line.
Yes, yes, absolutely. They're telling Sandra that she's like gonna have to cut back on her drinking now that she's pregnant. So she's gonna cut down to rum and orange juice with
instead of rum and Coke.
Yes, yeah, for her
you
health.
can't have rum and Coke anymore.
Yes.
Because bugger, I'll have to have rum and orange
Yes.
juice.
So 8 months later, she's like actually has a baby. Oh, she's happy because she can eat whatever she wants now that she's pregnant.
She's eating for two.
Yeah.
So she just eats. She's happy.
But she's talking about getting her figure back once after just the baby.
She looks exactly the same. She looked exactly the same when she was pregnant as when she's normal.
And she has the baby, and she's all like tearful about it. She's like, "What a beautiful baby! I'm going to raise her to be right." You know, then she learns that she won't be able to go to the pub anymore because she'll have to look after this kid until she's 18. Then she immediately, next panel, gives it up for adoption to the nurse.
Yep.
Says, get this baby out of here. Then there's some, like, kind of, it's very flexible, like Bugs Bunny. Like, there's one, like, set in Flintstone times.
Yes. And there's a Batman one.
There's a Batman
that
one.
That one was actually kind of funny. Bat Slags.
Yes.
So they were both... The pair of them were the Bat Slags, but also one of them was Bat Slag.
Bat Slag and Nobbin.
I was having trouble processing that, how they could collectively be the Bat Slags, but only one of them was Bat Slag.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that doesn't make sense. You're right. They didn't think it through. They should have worked that out. And basically, most of these strips end in orgy.
Yeah.
They'll end up finding...
saying, and people yelling, way hey.
Way hey. And talking about who's next in line. There's just a line of guys waiting their turn.
Yep.
And the
in
Slags
the boat one, they
happy.
end up in a Norwegian whaler.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Because they get washed out to sea on their boat. And, of course, they're all being, I guess, gangbanged.
Yes.
On the deck of this whaling ship.
And there's another one that's a parody of Combat, the old war comic, the UK war comic.
Yep.
And but they end up going to see a performance that's being done in a munitions factory, and they end up like locked in some torpedoes. And then the torpedoes end up on the submarine.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're like, we hear some banging from the torpedoes. They open the torpedoes. It's two women now in the submarine.
Go, way hey.
Way hey. And then there's a big gangbang.
Yep.
And then Trey gives the joke, what's long and hard and full of semen? And she says, I know that one, a submarine. She says, no, it's the captain.
Yep.
The end. And that's how most of them end.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so the thing I wanted to say about
I think... Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think these were... I'm laughing now.
Yeah.
It is funny to talk about them, but I did find them a bit much.
But are we laughing with them or at them? Like, I found I was laughing in, like, kind of uncomfortable, like, I can't believe they said that. I can't believe they drew that.
I couldn't make up my mind if it was exploitative or not, right?
Yeah.
There was that feeling. Like, is this... Like, it's certainly not politically correct.
No.
But I'm thinking, is this...
Is it actually offensive? Or,
is this offensive? Yeah.
Or is it not?
The fact that it was... Yeah, it's a bit much, especially reading them all in a row.
Yes.
Because when they appear in Viz... This is not the only comics thing called Viz, is it? Isn't there a...
There's a manga.
Isn't
The
Viz
big
Media?
manga company in the US is called Viz.
Haven't you done work for Viz
I have
Media?
done. I am working for Viz. It's confusing when you Google Viz.
Viz
In
Comic.
fact, if you start Googling Viz MA, you're not sure if you're going to get manga or magazine. It's happened to me several times this week.
Amazing. But when you're reading the magazine, Fat Slags is one strip among many, right?
And there's only one in this issue that I have, and it's
Right.
a pretty good little gag about how there's no smoking allowed in pubs anymore, and the guy, the manager of the pub, is like, sorry ladies, you can't smoke in here anymore. There's rules now. If you have more than 10 people in a place at once under a roof, you've got to have no smoking signs up. And then the final panel is them putting up the signs over their beds. And it's like, okay, that's a good gag, and that's it. That's it for the whole magazine. There's only one.
Yeah. So I think we're getting a different... Reading them... I've mentioned this in previous episodes, that you weren't supposed to read a dozen of these comics in a row.
Yeah.
Where it's just hammering you with, I guess, the sexism and the misogyny and the filth.
Yeah.
You were supposed to be reading them among a bunch of other things.
Yes.
Ads for pornographic DVDs.
Yes.
Ads for sex lines.
Yes.
Humorous tips about Mars bars.
Yes.
And fake letters to the editor.
Yeah.
So I think I was finding it a bit hard going by the end.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps if you read one of them in isolation among a bunch of other stuff, I think it would be, you might appreciate it a bit.
I also think I felt like there's a structural problem with them when they're in the North. And the guys, nobody's disgusted by them. The guys are just as bad, and they're ready to line up and have sex with them. Whereas the one with Sid the Sexist was really good because there was like a contrast.
With Virginia and Tacta, yeah.
Yeah, and there was like, this guy's trying not to have sex, he's freaked out by them.
Yes.
They're trying to, there's some kind of situation.
I hear what you're saying there, and that was a good strip. But also, I think the standard kind of Fat Slag strip is going to be, look at this world of horrors.
Yes.
That is the North.
Yes.
It's nothing but unemployed dole cheats
Yeah.
and hugely overweight, sex-mad molesters.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
This is Newcastle.
Yes.
And this is a Newcastle mag, so, I mean,
Yeah.
they're in on the joke, presumably the people writing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, actually, because the men in there they're pointing the fingers at the men of Newcastle.
Oh, absolutely.
In a sense. Yeah, so the last thing I want to say is, I keep trying to bring up their outfits, because it looks like they're drawn with 4 breasts, because they've got the cleavage is like 2 on top, and then under what's under the top is like 2 more, so it looks like they're...
Because their clothes are too tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they have these enormously rotund bellies.
Yes.
And it looks like they're 9 months pregnant all the time, but they're actually just fat.
Yeah.
And then when Sam was actually pregnant, she didn't look any different.
Yes.
Which was amusing.
In fact, there was a line in there when they were on the way to the hospital, she stopped for like chips and a kebab.
Yeah, she did.
And then when they got there and did the ultrasound, all he could see was the chips. I was like, oh, is the gag
Was the gag going to be that she was never pregnant?
She was never pregnant.
No, she was pregnant.
She was pregnant, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Yeah.
That seemed like a pretty obvious setup for a payoff about her never having been pregnant. But no.
Yeah.
Instead they just went on about how she had the fastest labour the hospital had ever seen or something, because she had so much.
Yes, they talk about the size of her vagina.
That's the one thing that they talk about all the time.
Yeah.
It's pretty broad stuff.
Yeah.
Hey! I wish you could see my face. I am disgusted at myself.
Okay, shall we move on to this movie?
Alright, okay, this fucking movie.
From 2004. It's an hour and 12 minutes.
That is the only thing. That is the last good thing I have to say about this film. The fact that it's an hour and 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable how short it is, really. And yet, as one reviewer said, it's the longest film you've ever seen.
Yeah. Okay, directed by Ed By. Apparently he was a Red Dwarf director.
Yeah, I love Red Dwarf. Just a shame to see him sunk to these depths. He also did a comedy called Kevin and Perry Go Large.
Okay.
I think that came out in around 2000 or 2001. A very similar premise. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like a sex comedy.
Okay.
This time about a character, like Kevin the teenager.
Okay.
this film was a big success.
Okay, the Kevin one.
Yeah, the Kevin and Perry one. Not Fat Slags. So he had form
Right.
in this area, but this movie... No spoilers, this movie is terrible.
Okay, so we start in the town of Fulchester on Shit Street.
Not a real town, it's a stand-in for Newcastle.
It's actually 69. Shit Street is a house. There's a milkman who arrives at the door. He's pulled in. This house is a total shit sty inside. It's all garbage everywhere. I don't think that was a feature in the comic that they lived in filth.
No. Odd choice. I found this a bit weird, honestly. Them yanking in the milkman and having... And basically raping him is very on brand for the Slags.
Yeah.
But that's... Some people... One person observed that was the last time they do anything that really mapped to their characters in the comic.
Huh, okay. So they pull him in and then we see the, ceiling shaking because they're having sex with him upstairs and there's the screaming and bits of the plaster are falling down, etc., etc. He runs away. Now, we learned that this movie's an hour and 12 minutes, and we don't actually... There's no introduction to the characters.
No, we're just expected to know who they are.
We're expected to know who they are. We're expected to have read Viz and know exactly what, I guess.
Yeah.
So, they're working at a foundry at a steelworks.
Yes, they're welders.
They're welders.
Were they welders in the comic ever? Not in the ones we read.
No, they have various jobs. They jump from job to... Actually, or they have these kind of... fake jobs like the World War II job or the Flintstones, whatever setting they're in. I think one of them talks about they're off for the day. One of them is talking about how she's reading OK Magazine and she's like, oh, imagine what it would be like to be a celebrity. That would be so wonderful. But they have forgotten to turn something off.
The welders, they just drop their torches without shutting them off.
That's right. And after they exit the building, they walk through the door, and the exit door says a sign on it says "Show your pass." I'm like, okay, there's a gag coming. It's like that throughout this movie. Yeah. So when they're outside, the boss fires them for being poor workers. Then the factory explodes. That door that says "Show your pass" falls on his head, and then something falls on the P, so it says "Show your ass." There you go.
Get it?
Get it? Yeah.
The jokes like this the whole way through.
Yep.
I don't think I laughed once.
I giggled a few times. Okay. I did chuckle a few times.
I think actually no. I think the only time I laughed was when they were panning down that long table with all the food on it, and
the music starts up again.
The Handel music starts a second time.
Yeah. That
was the only time I laughed.
Yeah.
I had pretty much a horrified expression on my face the whole way through this.
Yeah.
It's not even that it's not lewd, it's not filthy in the way the comic is.
Yeah.
It's more just lame. Really, really lame.
Yes.
So, as you mentioned, they get fired by their manager, and he has a joke. What does he say? He says to them that they're worse than that bloke with Parkinson's down the nitroglycerin factory in terms of how effective they are on the job, I guess. What kind of a joke is that?
Yeah.
That's so lame.
Yeah.
Bloke with Parkinson. Oh. Down at the nitroglycerin factory.
Yeah.
Then, I think, next they're driving?
Yeah.
Why are they driving? They catch a bus later. Are they, do they wreck their car?
A lot of questions about this.
They're driving and they're just running over people.
Yeah, because every time Tracy needs to shift, she has to look down at the gearbox. And then she ends up driving into a cop, driving into a crossing guard, stuff like that. By the way, we haven't mentioned these are two ladies in fat suits. Big kind of ridiculous fat suits.
And they're not good fat suits either. I mentioned Little Britain before. Yeah. Okay, so the fat suits in Little Britain look... You've seen them. They're horrifying.
Yeah. Yes.
Horrifying.
Yeah.
These are just... What they're wearing in this film are just body stockings. They look like rubber.
Right.
They do not look anything like real people. They very, very obviously body stockings just with sort of like pillows stuffed in them. Well, not pillows, but that's what it looks like, right?
Yeah.
They don't look like... They're not proportioned like real people. I suppose they look a bit like the comics.
Yes. I don't know if we're trying to make them look like real people. I don't think that would be the movie's intent.
But you would want them to look, I suppose, grotesque, really, for the...
Yes.
I suppose if you wanted to get the kind of humour that Little Britain is going for, the gross-out humour, the other extreme of British comedy or English comedy, then you would want to spend money, I suppose, on the fat suits to give them drooping breasts or warts and cellulite and things like that. Instead, they look...
Look, I think it's better that they look cartoony than if they look like a realistic...
I think, yes, better for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Better for humankind.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you wanted to make a Fat Slags comic, they should have been... If you wanted to go all in on...
Yeah.
I'm getting into adaptation already.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll pull back and I'll just say it looks cheap. Really cheap, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I agree with that. Okay, so they drive home. They're meeting Baz and Dave at a kebab truck.
Yes.
We don't really get much about Baz or Dave. They're just two guys that they're meeting at...
We don't even meet them until later.
The first scene we see them, one of them is throwing up and one of them is pissing in this next to the kebab.
That's all we get.
That's all we get. And we don't know what the relationship is to the women, except that the women are going there to meet them. We don't know anything about them.
No, the film doesn't bother to tell us. We later find out that I guess they're steady, they're their go-to blokes. Because they see them on TV later and we get the B plot, which is them being detained by immigration.
Yeah, we'll come back around because I can't quite figure out a lot of the stuff that's going on. Okay, so when they get home, they're going through their mail, and one of them is an invitation to appear on a talk show about overweight women from the north or something.
Yeah. About
very weird that this invitation would come in the mail.
Yeah.
Instead of
2004.
being recruited in a mall or getting a phone call.
Like the screenwriter couldn't think of any... The screenwriting in this is so lazy. And the screenwriter couldn't think of any better way to get them to London than them having a letter.
Yes. A letter that says, come to London and be on this TV show. And they're like, oh, we're going to be famous.
A letter. Yeah, I completely agree. And it's not the only shortcut that this film takes.
So they take a bus to London. So they're going to go to the big city. They're totally gross on the bus, and all the people on the bus are grossed out by them. Now, this is, again, it's not like it is in the comic where everybody's fine with them. But I guess, like, as you pointed out in that boat one...
They're leaving the north.
Yeah. So I guess other people in other parts of the country do find them disgusting.
Yeah.
But there's all this farting and belching, blah, blah, blah.
But they spend almost no time in the north. So the idea that I think that you have this other world, this funny window into a make-believe version of the north.
Yeah.
When you take them out of that, I think, well...
Well, now we're supposed to have a fish out of water story, right? We're supposed to have our Beverly Hills Cop kind of deal here. They go into a fancy shop that's run by Naomi Campbell. She kicks them out.
What's Naomi Campbell doing in this movie?
A lot of people doing
There are so many cameos in this movie.
So many people in this movie. So they kick them out, and this movie references... This is the first of two references to Pretty Woman, which is a movie that came out 15 years before this. Also, Mission Impossible we get later on. That was 15 years before this. Strange that this should be the reference points for this writer. You know. Okay. So, meanwhile, now we cut to a limousine. Inside the limousine is a guy named Sean Cooley, played by Jerry O'Connell.
Jerry O'Connell's in this movie.
His lawyer, Victor, played by Anthony Head.
Anthony Head's in this movie.
So
these guys, we know, fans of American genre television will recognise Jerry O'Connell and Anthony Head as Quinn Mallory from Sliders.
And My Secret Identity. He was on that show for years, Canadian superhero show.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
I did say American, not Canadian.
Yeah.
But, Jerry O'Connell played Quinn Mallory in Sliders. Anthony Head played Giles in Buffy.
He was also in Ted Lasso the last four years of that.
Okay.
Pretty recently as well.
Okay.
I mean, he's busy. Anthony Head is very busy.
He's a British character actor. If you need a stuffy Brit, you cast Anthony Head.
Yes.
He also appeared on Little Britain.
That's right. Yes. Yes. And also his assistant Paige, played by Geri Halliwell, the best of the Spice Girls. Not sure what she's doing. I think she was trying to... There's a tie-in single. I think she was trying to sell that. Maybe
really?
That's why. I think so. I might be...
She released two albums at this point, two solo albums at this point. I don't know. Was her career in the doldrums? Was she...
No, I think she was trying to get tie-in stuff to... Okay. I think she's trying to promote... Money. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, she's in this. So Sean, he's a billionaire, Geri O'Connell. He's just a billionaire. He's on the phone with the Dalai Lama and Britney Spears in his limo. They arrive at his office and he's still on the phone, and there's an accident on a higher floor, and a flower pot falls down several floors and hits him on the head and gives him temporary brain damage.
Well, yeah, again, here's another shortcut that the film's taking. He goes from being a cutthroat, rapacious American businessman to... He essentially has a personality reversal.
Yes.
So, get hit in the head, undergo personality reversal.
Yeah.
When was this a great great movie trope?
No, it's not
20s?
a good... Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yes, but I thought...
It's so hokey.
At this point, I thought what was going to happen was... Well, what happens, they go to a business meeting, and the guy who's running the audio-visual has... is struggling to get set up, and he ends up going through the TV channels and passes the channel where Sandra and Trey, that talk show that they are on, and he is suddenly, it's love at first sight. He loves these two women.
So stupid. Like he's drunk a love potion or something.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the guy with the remote is played by David Schneider.
Okay.
He was the co-writer of Death of Stalin.
What? For real?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a random fact for you.
Okay, I accept this fact.
Incidentally, before Geri O'Connell underwent his bump to the head transformation, he was on the phone to the Dalai Lama, as you mentioned, and he calls him an ancient cocksucker.
Yes.
They've even got an actor playing the Dalai Lama who looks quite a bit like the Dalai Lama.
Yeah.
I've just got 1,000 yard stare going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's supposed to be like a super...
The Dalai Lama's, I think he's been cancelled a bit lately, but was it ever okay to say something about that?
Well, I think this guy's supposed to be a super evil billionaire who doesn't care about people.
The only thing that's super evil is this fucking movie. Anyway.
I think he's supposed... I think that's...
It's a character establishing moment.
Yeah.
It's just so... It's so on the nose, though. Such a... I had a double take at that line. Anyway, so he becomes a stupid reverse version of himself. Yeah. So he now... I've written down in my notes... So, Quinn Mallory gets hit on the head, and now he's dumb, ? Is that it? But then in the next scene, he wants to do charity.
Yeah.
And...
He wants to build all these orphanages.
He wants to do charity, and he's in love with disgusting fat chicks.
Yeah.
So, what, is charity stupid? But no, he's just become bizarro billionaire, right?
Yes.
Instead of lusting after thin supermodels, he now lusts after fat working class people from Northern England.
Yes.
And instead of wanting to accumulate capital, he wants to get rid of it.
Yes.
And Anthony Head, who's playing a kind of cutthroat lawyer character, is horrified by all this.
Yes, but he has to kind of do what his boss says.
Yes.
And he obeys him.
He does.
There's a confusing scene here where, so Anthony Head is sent to find these two women, and he does, and he gets them in... Does he get them into their limo or something? But then they go to the hotel, and the women go into the hotel, and they're talking to the hotel clerk to get a room, and he's like, get out of here.
Yep.
And then Geri O'Connell shows them and says, put them into my suite.
Yeah, so it's more...
But I'm like, wait a second, didn't they drive them here? Why are the women in there talking to receptionists by themselves?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Did I miss something here, or am I...
I can't even remember. So for a taxi, it's a taxi. It looks like a limo, but it's actually a taxi, like a Black London taxi. Giles is there. Yeah. Anthony Head. Forget his character's name.
Victor Lang. I wrote it down because we get on-screen title cards for these three characters, but
that's the only time we get on-screen title cards. It's not even consistent. It might even have helped earlier when we didn't know who any of these characters were.
Yep.
Anyway,
so we're talking about the cab.
Giles comes up in a cab.
Yeah.
He wants them to get in it. They don't want to get in it. He convinces them to get in it somehow.
Yes.
I don't remember.
He talks them into it.
And then does he offer them the job then, or?
No.
Then he drives them to the hotel. Is it?
The cab goes to a hotel. He doesn't get in the cab with them. I'm looking at the scene right now.
No, he doesn't get in the cab.
He doesn't get. They arrive at this fancy hotel. So they're in there and they're trying to get a room, and the guy's like, "Get out of here!" But then Geri O'Connell and Anthony Head show up, and they're like, "Okay, let them into his Sweet, why weren't they... none of this adds up.
Why didn't well, it's because we need this scene to happen.
Yes.
And the screenwriter's too lazy to make it happen organically. So we'll just have Anthony Head put them in a taxi, not get in it with them,
Yeah.
and then follow them, in another taxi to the hotel where he and Geri O'Connell go in, and he's enamored of them, and he tells the hotel guy behind the hotel desk, who's like, of course, snooty.
Yeah.
You know, it's a classic thing, you know, like the snooty guy
It's the guy from Ferris Bueller at the restaurant that won't let Ferris in, and Ferris has to say he's like the hot dog king or something like that in Chicago.
Yep. Or have you seen Crazy Rich Asians? Where Michelle Yeoh buys the hotel.
Yes.
And he has to let the filthy Asiatics in.
Yes. Oh, that happened in Batman Begins as well.
It's so cliched. And they couldn't even think of a good way to set up this cliche. The guy behind the desk, incidentally, is I haven't written his name down, but he's been in so much stuff.
Right, okay.
He's in Mr. Bean. He's the lifeguard in Mr. Bean. Okay. Remember the lifeguard that won't let Mr. Bean...
Yep.
Yeah.
He
won't let him slide down the kids' slide.
Yes.
And he blows the whistle. Everybody out. That's him. That's the same guy.
That's the guy, okay. There's a scene here in the jacuzzi where the two ladies are in a jacuzzi, and one of them does this fart, which causes this huge bubble to form, and then she puts out her cigarette in it, and then it explodes in a ball of flame.
Sets fire to the OK magazine.
I smirked at that.
I didn't.
Okay, now, meanwhile, back in the north, these two dudes...
Who we haven't met, incidentally. We could have really done with some captions like we got for... It was like a shot from another movie where we got those titles explaining who they were.
Yeah.
And not just who they were, but it sort of gave a character profile for them.
Yeah, it's like an upper class Git or something like that.
For Giles.
Yeah.
And Paige had said that she was obsessed. She's in love with Geri O'Connell, her boss.
Right.
That's apparently her motivation in the film.
Right, okay.
Because later on she starts overeating once.
Yeah, because he says you can put on some pounds or something like that.
Yes, he does. And
this is after he's been
this is taken as evidence that he's gone mad.
Yeah.
But then later on in the film, there's a huge kind of like culture shift once the fat slags have become.
Well, this is a whole plot point we have to talk about. When we get to it.
We do.
Okay, so
do we have to though?
Yes. Okay, so these two guys, they see that talk show because the talk show erupted into violence like Jerry Springer almost.
Yeah. Yes.
And the guys see this on TV and they think it's hilarious. And it seems like they want to go to London because they saw this on TV. I don't know, but they get on a...
It's not explained.
They start hitchhiking down to London.
They recognise them because they're their girl... Well, we don't really know, but they're sort of their girlfriends, I suppose, the ones that they're going steady with them.
Yeah.
Maybe. But the joke here is that these guys have incomprehensible... accents.
Yes, like Brad Pitt and Snatch, but like worse, like really incomprehensible. I could only understand like a couple of words.
Yeah, they're putting it on, and it's also not a Geordie accent. I think it's meant to be Lancastrian.
Okay.
But like completely hammed up.
Right.
Neither of the blokes are from Lancashire.
Right.
You know, it's just, and also this joke doesn't make sense because they're in England.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
The immigration picks them up. They're the whitest dudes.
Yep.
But they talk in this incomprehensible patois from northern England. And so the southerners are bemused by the southern cops, are completely confused and have decided that because they hitchhike with a French trucker.
Yeah.
Fine. And then because that guy's French, they assume that the guys he's hitching, the guys in the cab with him, are also foreign.
Yes.
Because they speak this gibberish. And since they can't get any sense out of them... This is the joke. Because they can't get any sense out of him, they arrest him. It's the 2008 British version of ICE.
Yeah.
And they take him to They take both of them to detention, and they're just trying to figure out who they are. And because they keep talking in...
Yeah.
It's so stupid. In the end, they say something that they mistake for Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
And they end up deporting them to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
This is the whole B-plot.
Yes. Okay, so meanwhile, it's also London Fashion Week. So Jerry O'Connell decides he wants these two girls to be in the fashion show, to be the centerpieces.
Because he's gone mad.
Because he's gone mad. The guy who's running the show is freaked out, but like, okay, he's going to do it.
Not a Frenchman. Like a completely flamboyant kind of like French fashion director wearing a spiked collar.
Yeah.
Played by another British actor who I recognise as someone who was on The Thin Blue Line, which was a Ben Elton kind of like police comedy.
Right, yes.
He played Constable Goody on that.
Wasn't Rowan Atkinson in that?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Rowan Atkinson was in that, yeah.
By the way, one of the immigration officials is Hugh Dennis, who's another British comedic actor you might recognise.
It's so strange the number of actors who should have known better that are in this movie.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that when we get to the end, I think.
Yeah.
But okay, so they have a bit of runway practice. I don't know why I wrote that down. Maybe I found something funny. There's a bit where she walks right off the end of the runway. Again, I smirked.
Yep.
They decide they need to go to the gym to get in shape. Trainer comes in.
It's Dolph Lundgren.
Dolph Lundgren.
At the absolute nadir of his career. Yes.
Look, he never had a peak past 84. Like, past Rocky 4.
Well, I think Universal Soldier.
Okay, yes.
He's in Universal Soldier, and after... I actually looked up his filmography, and after Universal Soldier, he mostly does direct-to-videos.
Yeah.
He does direct-to-videos through all kind of like the 90s and the early noughties, and then he's in this one in 2004.
Yeah.
And this is probably as low as he got. Because from... this is terrible, this scene, too.
Yeah.
But he's sort of their trainer...
Yeah, and they're like hitting him on the head with the weights and stuff.
So there's like really broad slapstick.
Yeah.
So it's not even the kind of gross out stuff that we would expect from all the perversions, all the sexual perversions and innuendo that we would expect in the comic, but just really silly things like random explosions going off and hitting him on the head and having to give him mouth to mouth.
Yeah.
And I think they blow cigarette smoke into his mouth.
Yeah.
And anyway, speaking of Dolph Lundgren, so he eventually has the career renaissance in 2010 with The Expendables.
Expendables, okay.
Yeah.
He's also in one of the Universal Soldier sequels that is amazing, actually. It's like the third or fourth one.
Okay. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, it's really a weird... Those movies got really weird at the tail end, like 4 or 5.
Sometimes that happens. Sometimes you get an odd, good sequel. But anyway, so he was... after The Expendables, of course, he's doing a lot better now. He's...
okay.
He's in the Aquaman movies. He's transitioned.
Yes, he's in the Aquaman movies.
He's transitioned to casting him for nostalgia.
Yes,
and he's no longer doing these desperate things.
But I don't think. You know what? I also think it was very secondary because he was an Olympic athlete. Isn't he also a physicist or something like that?
He has a master's degree in chemistry.
Okay, so I don't think
he actually did a semester in the University of Sydney.
Okay, I don't think this is a priority. I don't know. The acting career.
He's doing these I don't know. I don't know. Do you do direct-to-videos unless you need the money? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, so his career's on the up and up after 2010, and I actually have an interview with him in 2010 where someone asked him if The Expendables represents the new peak of his career, did the fact Slags represent rock bottom? To which, when he was asked in an interview if that was true, he, quote, guffawed heartily and said, "Don't go there or I'll have to kill you like some Russian spy."
Okay, the runway show happens. People are freaked out by the fat Slags. Yeah. But at the end of the show, for some reason, they unzip their tops and expose their breasts.
Well, because that's what they do, right?
But has this been established earlier?
Well, they're just... no, not really. They're
no
supposed to be
reason
loose
for them.
women.
Yeah, but why... They seem like exhausted and they're suddenly like, okay, and then they unzip their tops. I don't know why they did it.
Yeah. And then I really don't know why everyone reacts with...
Everybody loves it. The crowd loves it. Suddenly they become huge celebrities.
Yeah. Not just that, but fashionistas, like style leaders. Now everybody... We get all these... I lamented that we didn't get the spinning newspapers last week.
Yes, we got spinning newspapers.
Yeah, boy, I got more spinning newspapers than I ever wanted.
Yeah.
Or dreamed I'd ever receive. Yeah. So it's just spinning newspapers about how fat's in and everybody's eating chips with gravy now.
Okay.
And
they record like a single. They appear on top of the pops.
Yeah.
They return to that store run by Naomi Campbell where they're treated
Now
nicely,
like
and they have plus sizes now in this shop because everybody wants to be fat. My question is, I don't understand the world of this movie because on the bus everybody thought they were completely disgusting.
It doesn't make sense.
Now people think they're great because they expose their breasts at the fashion show?
I don't think it's because they expose their breasts. I think it's just...
But they were grossed out by them the whole show. They were like, what are these women doing on stage?
I agree, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
And then suddenly,
Were
after
they
they
grossed
show
out
their breasts,
though? I know
they were shocked.
some people were shocked.
I think they were all like...
They were shocked at first, but then did they come around? Or you're right, it really does feel like it comes from nowhere.
Because literally, this director, Ed By, there's dead silence. So much silence that we literally get a shot of a pin dropping.
Yes.
It's literalized on screen. And then everybody erupts into applause.
Yeah, you're right. It does seem to imply that them showing their breasts is what did it.
Was somehow some kind of artistic...
But it's not explained.
No, there's no... I think what the movie should have said or wanted to say, maybe, was that this is like the elite cognoscenti, like these people are the artistic elite that have some crazy ideas about what's radical.
Yeah.
And if these women show their breasts, that's some radical thing.
We do get that later when they win the...
We get that later on, but we don't get it in this scene where we probably maybe needed it. But even if that was the case, why would that make them famous outside of this elite art circle?
It doesn't make sense.
Nothing about this adds up.
There's nothing like snooty, arty types mistaking...
No.
Like, mistaking... Because there's another trope. The idea where snooty people mistake people that are genuinely credulous or...
Yeah.
Or gross or stupid as being profound or artistically valuable.
Yes, we had this in Art School Confidential and other movies
of course.
we've done. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
But they don't do that.
No.
They don't set it up.
No.
In fact, everyone's horrified up until this point, including the French art director, including the David Beckham lookalike, including the Posh Spice lookalike.
Yeah.
It's interesting having a Posh Spice lookalike in a movie with Geri Halliwell.
Yes.
You're right, there's no setup for that kind of payoff. It just doesn't. It just seems, as you say, that they're reacting to the sight of rubbery balloon breasts.
Yeah. So now it becomes a rags to riches story where these women move into a castle.
I didn't recognise the castle, so stately home or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we get the sole joke that I laughed at in the movie here with the very, very long table.
You know, there's some stuff in this scene, like there's a weird side table which it's two legs with like a glass platform. Yeah. There's like some weird art.
It's like the lampshade from A Christmas
Exactly.
Story.
It's like there's some weird shit in the scene
You're
that's kind of going by.
So they've brought some of their tacky shit in there too, because they're and they're eating this incredibly fattening like shit food. So they've got a butler.
Yeah.
They've got a corgi or like some kind of posh dog.
Actually, there's an amazing gag here. I would say the one amazing gag in the movie where I believe it's San.
Yep.
Accidentally sits on the dog, flattens it into a frisbee. She throws it out the window, it hits the gardener, and explodes in a fireball.
Why does the gardener
It was so absurd that I was like, oh, there's a whole movie that has that needs that kind of tone. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
if the whole film had that
tone,
absurdist,
where a gardener explodes because a flattened dog has been thrown at his head.
Unfortunately, the whole film doesn't have that kind of tone, so it sticks out here like a sore thumb. You know, if this film had been absurdist instead of I don't know, like played straight a lot of the time, and with Sam and Trey meant to be sympathetic characters, because they are the designated heroes of this movie. We're supposed to relate to them.
In fact, I suspected when Jerry O'Connell got hit in the head, I thought the movie was going to be about him eventually getting his mind back. He's going to fall in love.
Yeah.
He's going to get his mind back, but then he's going to have to realize that these women were worthy anyway, even when he's not mentally damaged. I thought that's how it was going to play. It doesn't play.
No.
But actually, we get the next plot shift here. It's no longer Reich's Riches. The new story is Tracy is now involved or is trying to get Sean for herself.
Well, see here, the plot, the story, interpersonal conflict between the Slags. Why would we care about this?
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Why would we?
Their friendship breaking up.
Yes.
Why would?
I don't know, but
don't
this
even know
is
anything
but this
about
is
them.
the new obstacle.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
he gives her a present, like a necklace. This is where we get the little jewelry box gag from Pretty Woman.
Pretty
again.
Woman, you're right.
He takes her to an art show, but then Sandra shows up at the show because she's following them.
You know, Tracy has inveigled her way into this by claiming that Sam is sick. Oh, no, she says she's shagging the pool boy.
Right.
So, and yet Sam is listening to this conversation on the phone.
Yes.
So, Geri O'Connell expected them both to show up, or wanted them both to show up, but then Tracy says, oh, Sam can't show up, except Sam was on the phone at the time and could have said, yes, I can.
Yeah.
But instead she hangs up and sits on the dog, and follows her secretly to the building with Geri O'Connell. When she gets there, Tracy is given the present in the jewelry box, the Pretty Woman scene, except there's only one necklace. He had expected both
Yeah.
of them to show up, but he has only one necklace?
Yeah.
Also, why didn't Tracy go in, and why does she wait until he gets to the... it's because she's in a pedicab, isn't it? And she's too fat to be pulled along.
Yes.
Okay,
She ends up
maybe,
pulling
alright.
it herself.
But why not confront...
Yeah.
Why does she wait to confront her until... because these scenes need to happen?
Yeah. So at the art show, it's like a competition for like the piece of the year. So there's there's a little attempt at parodying modern art here. But then the third entry is that Geri Connell secretly removed their kitchen from Fulchester brick by brick and rebuilt it here.
In exactly the same.
Exactly the
and
same
it wins
as
the
a piece of art,
award
and
as,
it wins-
as like a... because these snooty snobs can't tell the difference between someone's disgusting kitchen and modern art. Ha ha ha, get it?
Yeah. So Tracy and Sean get in the limo, go for a drive to get some kebabs. This is maybe the moment that's closest to the comic, because she starts to give him a blowjob, but then there's an accident and she bites half his dick off.
Yeah. That's the sort of thing I guess that would happen.
That might happen in the comic, yeah. So when she gets back home, Sandra starts attacking her with an axe, and they have a big fight. There's a chase through the house, and this big fight that lasts all night. But then it turns out that they have a charity event the next day for some kind of sex education for third world countries or something like that.
Yeah, and with the UN Secretary General.
Yeah. That's fine. It's a gag. But they start fighting again, and they fall on this guy.
Yeah. He has to go
injuring
to
him.
hospital.
Right. So basically, they get sent to jail for this.
For assaulting the UN Secretary General.
Or for like almost killing him or whatever. He's knocked out.
And they're wearing arrowed jumpsuits. They're like skin tight.
Yes.
And they're in the Tower of London, which is not used as a prison.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's okay. It was a gag.
Oh yeah. I don't know why.
Jerry's in the hospital. He's about to propose to Tracy over the phone, but as he's
in the hospital getting surgery.
as he's
penis,
getting pushed through, he bumps his head on a machine,
and it reverses,
and it knocks him out and reverses the brain damage that he got earlier. Meanwhile, oh, by the way, the boys have been sent to Afghanistan. They've been deported to Afghanistan at this stage. That doesn't matter so much. Anyway, Geri realizes that everything has gone wrong, and he comes to the jail and says the engagement is off. By the way, he never engaged. He never proposed.
No.
He was interrupted. So why does he need to call off the engagement? It never happened.
Exactly.
The girls decide their fame. We get some more spinning headlines. It's like they're no longer famous.
Now that
now
Jerry's
shamed.
withdrawn his patronage,
Yes.
there's
Some clause where he can take back the castle and everything.
Yeah, but him withdrawing the money behind their campaign means that suddenly they're not style setters anymore.
Yeah.
A comment about the intertwining of fashion and capitalism, or is it
and fickleness
just a lazy way to get for the next part of the film to happen?
I think it wants to be a commentary about the fickleness of culture, but it's very lazy. So they need to go. They want early parole, and they walk into the director or the warden's office.
Yeah.
It looks like the same castle. I was very confused about the scene. I thought they were home again. I was like, how did they get out of jail?
I'm sure they just used the same castle.
They're in the same castle. They just shot in a different corridor. It drove me crazy. I actually had to back it up twice. I was like, how'd they get out of jail? Okay, so they get out of parole because they have sex with the warden who stamps their parole.
Of course, he wants to. Yeah, why, he's a southerner. Why would he be interested in... We've seen there's been a reversal. Yeah. Why is he interested? Who cares? We actually see her shagging him. It's not the first time we've seen an actual... wearing the... sort of just jumping up and down on him wearing the fat suit.
Yeah. Okay, so now they decide, the ladies decide they need to get Jerry O'Connell's laptop because there's something on there that will save them. I can't remember what it was.
Well, they want revenge now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but exactly, it doesn't matter. It just needs the next set piece to happen.
So they like poison his coffee so that he needs to run to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Then we get a Mission Impossible sequence where she comes down from the ceiling and steals the laptop. There's a CGI rat in this scene.
It's terrible.
That Trey belches on and it scurries away or dies or something like that.
Yep.
They get the laptop. It's a Sony Vaio. It's very prominent in the scene to make sure we know what the product is.
Yep.
And they run away. They get stuck in the revolving door for a very long time. Not sure why. And then Jerry's like, what was on that laptop? Was there anything important? And Anthony Head's like, yeah, our deals with the Russian gangsters are on there. And he's like, well, get that laptop. Now, as far as these two guys know, they think those women are in prison. And even if they weren't in prison, they don't know where they are. But they are on a bus going back north. Anthony Head gets in his car and chases the bus. How did he know it was those two women? How did he know those two women were on that bus?
Yeah,
is there Apple tracking on this Sony Vaio?
I'm so tired. Okay, it doesn't explain it, but Sam drops a dildo.
Yes.
And it lands on a cake, and it's humorously sticking up out of the cake.
Yes. So that's a giveaway that it was them?
That's a giveaway that it was them, because they're disgusting women that take dildos everywhere.
Okay.
It doesn't explain how he knows they're on the bus.
They're on that bus. Okay.
That bus in particular. But that is how he figures out that it's them that took it.
Okay.
Not like corporate espionage or something.
So they try to get into this computer. They can't do it, so they just throw it out the window. So why did they need it in the first place?
Yep.
They just throw it out the window, and it crashes through Anthony Head's windshield.
And blows up his car. Yeah, another gratuitous explosion. I don't know what this film thinks.
But in this case, they established that if the dog can explode, the laptop can explode the car. I was okay with it.
Enough. It's just, there's only there's two gratuitous explosions, 3 if you count the fart. I know an hour and 12 minutes isn't very long, but I want more I need more than 3 to establish a pattern.
Right, okay. So, he's failed in his mission to the laptop's destroyed, so they're fine either way. But back at the office, there had been some damage to the roof.
Anthony Head's in a winch. The winch that they attached to in the ventilation shaft to lower Trey down over the desk. Anthony Head is all completely bandaged up. Of course, I'm sure he spent an uncomfortable hour in makeup getting ready for this scene. He can't even move his mouth or anything like that. Then we can see this winch is loosening. Mm-hmm. It's loosening because Trey was so fat earlier. She loosened it earlier. Now it's finally giving up the ghost. Anthony Head says, winch, winch. Even though he couldn't possibly have seen the winch because it's up in a ventilation shaft. He couldn't have seen it.
Yep.
Whatever. It falls down, hits Jerry O'Connell on the head.
And you think we're going to get another reversal? By the way, I don't know if we should bring this up, but I'm looking at the scene now on my laptop.
Yeah.
And so the laptop is all smashed, right? Yeah. But then when you get the reverse shot, except for that first scene of the smashed laptop, it's a new Sony Vaio in every other shot.
Yeah.
In this scene. Okay, so
I am not watching Kumar's laptop.
Yeah.
I just want to point that out. I am never watching this movie again.
So the women are back in their home up north, but they've got no wall because their kitchen's gone. Where the kitchen was, it's been taken away for that art installation. And a limo pulls up, and based on the head injury we saw before,
we think it's going to be
Jerry O'Connell getting out of the limo, and instead it's those two lads
Faz and Dave.
that had been sent to Afghanistan, and we never got a scene of them leaving Afghanistan.
How'd they get back?
How did they get back? Why are they
Why are
in a
they in
limo?
a limo? Don't ask questions. Just consume product.
And then we get a like a dance sequence, like a performance in like a...
In a pub.
In a
Where
pub?
The MC in the pub is Les Dennis, another UK celebrity.
And this is they do a dance sequence while the final credits roll, and it says based on characters as featured in Viz Comic is the credit.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the whole hour 12 minutes. That's actually an hour 8 minutes before credits. So
Amazing.
It's like 3 minutes of credits.
And yet every minute of it felt like a year.
Okay, get to trivia. Do you know the budget of this movie? Because I felt
No.
like a CGI rat and all these people all these walk-on parts would have been expensive.
The CGI rat looked cheap as hell.
Sure.
And when Jerry O'Connell had his accident in the limo, they used a really, really cheap effect to make his eyes bulge.
Right.
It's so cheap. It looks like it was done in the mid-90s on a home computer. So I don't... But yet there are all... And I think there's a lot of these cameos in it. I don't know. I think maybe when people signed on, they thought it was going to be a charming, wink, wink, nudge, nudge kind of fun sex comedy instead of the absolute...
Maybe they grew up reading Viz.
I don't know. Anyway, no idea what the budget was.
Okay.
I do know how much it made, though.
Okay.
It made $105,000. $105,000 and $105,091 US.
Okay.
Which is not good. In 103 theatres across the UK. No overseas distribution.
Okay.
In an... yeah. Okay, to compare, the most successful movie of that year in the UK was Shrek 2. Made $88 million US in the UK market in 949 cinemas.
Okay.
That was the most successful film of 2004. Napoleon Dynamite was also... We love Napoleon Dynamite on comic book movie Oblivion, despite it not being a comic book movie. It came out that year. It made $1 million US, so 10 times as much as Fat Slags.
Yeah, right.
On only 51 cinemas.
Okay.
And even Thomas J's Punisher,
Okay.
which came out that year, made $335,000
Huh.
on 217 cinemas.
Okay.
So twice as many cinemas, and 3 times as much money. No, it's still not a success.
Yeah.
But considering this is a British movie with all sorts of British actors about a British comic property that many people were familiar with and presumably had some nostalgia for in 2004, it's pretty terrible. Other films did worse.
Okay.
But they were mostly like documentaries or Bollywood films.
Okay.
That released in far fewer cinemas.
Yeah. Yeah.
One was amusingly, there was another film that did worse, was called School for Seduction, which was another sex comedy set in Newcastle.
Huh.
So there were 2
Something
that year.
in the water. Okay. Okay.
Yes, so it came out October the 15th,
Okay.
2004. There was no premiere.
Okay.
Obviously, according to the filmmakers, because of an availability issue, but actually because I'm sure it tested poorly, and a premiere would have cost more than the film made.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. How did it get made? Okay, what seems to have happened is Viz has changed hands a couple of times since the 1980s. In a few years before this, it was sold to Dennis Publishing, but there were film rights. Because of the agreement between the publishers, the film rights, there was no film at this point, but the film rights remained with the magazine's former owner, which is John Brown Publishing.
Okay.
So they retained the rights, and that company sold off
Okay.
the rights to whichever production company ended up making it. So I found an interview in 2014 with Graham Dury, the guy who draws the comic. He said, "I don't want to talk about this film so much, but we had a big argument with John Brown, the owner of John Brown Publishing, the publisher, who said he'd sold the film rights. He said, 'Don't worry, no one will take it up.'
Huh.
Then somebody took it up.
Huh.
Then he said, 'Don't worry, no one will raise the money.' They did. And then he said, don't worry, no one will distribute it. And of course, it got distributed. He said, there was less than 500 people who paid to see it in the country, which is fantastic. It opened in Newcastle and closed after one day with just 6 people in the audience.
Wow.
It was so bad. It really was that no one saw it. I didn't. So Graham Dury never saw it.
Right.
The Fat Slags had a reputation to protect, and irony of ironies, it was protected. Because the film was so dreadful.
Right. Okay.
Aftermath. Ed Bye never directed another feature film.
Okay.
Oh, I think he did one. Yeah, he did one, but it was a very small film.
Okay.
He's since gone back to television.
Okay.
The screenwriter. So I've been bagging out the screenwriter for his shocking film. The screenwriter is a guy called William Osborne, who is English.
Okay.
Actually, as a very young man, shortly after beginning a career as a barrister, he moved to Hollywood with a friend of his, also called William, and started writing screenplays, and their only preparation was to buy a book called Screenplay and read it 5 times. William Osborne, who wrote this film, wrote Twins.
Okay.
Danny DeVito, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, wow.
Stop or My Mum Will Shoot.
Okay, okay.
Not a great film.
No.
The Real McCoy.
Okay.
That's with Kim Basinger.
Okay.
And Val Kilmer.
Right, yeah, right.
And Terrence Stamp.
Right, okay.
And he also wrote The Scorpion King.
Oh,
Shout out to Ken Scambler, who loves The Scorpion King. He ended up... So he had a pretty successful career in Hollywood. He moved back to England in 2001 and transitioned to writing young adult fiction. Probably related to this fact is that in 2004 he wrote both Fat Slags and Thunderbirds. Not the remake of Thunderbirds, neither of which was a success.
You know, I'm just looking at his credits here. He's also got a credit on Goldeneye.
Yes.
And Ghost in the Machine, which is the Rachel Talalay movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
From around the same period as...
He's not credited as one of the main writers for Goldeneye. He's just did some rewrites at some point. But yes, Ghost in the Machine. And you know what else he wrote? He wrote Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde, a famously terrible, gender-bending bomb movie from the mid-90s starring Sean Young.
Oh. Okay.
Geri Halliwell and Jerry O'Connell started dating briefly after having met making this movie. They then broke up, presumably because they kept getting their names confused.
Oh. That is funny.
Yeah. I don't have too much more to add. Anthony Head will be back.
Oh.
He will be in Ghost Rider 2.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And he's also in Gotham by Gaslight, which is an animated movie.
Yep.
Where he plays
Jack the Ripper.
Where he plays Alfred.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
The guy that plays Baz, he's called Tom Goodman Hill.
Okay.
He too will be back.
Huh.
He plays a character in the film that we're definitely going to do.
Okay.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. You know, I bet half these people are in the St. Trinian's movies as well.
If they are, I didn't spot them, but it's very possible. All right. To wind up, No. Let's do our votes here.
Okay. The comics. I will say there were some laughs, but I wished I was reading the Sid the Sexist comics after reading these, because that seemed like a better premise. This seemed like the same Fat Slag adventure in World War II. Same Fat Slag adventure during Flintstone times. It's the same kind of thing over and over again. Was hard to take 80 pages of it at once.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. These aren't for me. It's a bit too coarse, a bit too broad, but also you're not meant to read it like this unless you're already a fan.
Yeah.
You were meant to read it among lots of other strips and content.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah, that's an A for me too. What about the film, Kumar?
Again, I chuckled maybe twice, 2-3 times, sometimes in disbelief, maybe not actually with the movie, but at it. But it's really bad. It's hard work. I think it's really confused about its plot. Even though it's only an hour 12, it's like it goes through so many different archetypes of plots. It's so confused about the reaction of people to the Fat Slags. That should be set in stone. That's got to be worked out. Yeah, it's bad all around. Okay, go ahead. What's your...
Well, I'm just going to read some reviews.
Okay.
In the BBC, Make Sex Lives of the Potato Man look like Citizen Kane.
Okay.
Despite being only 75 minutes long, Fat Slags may well feel like the longest film you've ever seen. In the Times, I would sooner recommend you scoop out your eyes with teaspoons than watch this. Simon Donald, the co-founder of Viz Magazine, said, "Not even the most brain-dead teenage moron will find any enjoyment whatsoever in this truly irredeemable crock of horse shit." Mm-hmm. This might be the worst film I've ever seen.
Okay, well, we need to bring in the segment, Is It Worse Than Veronica?
Is it worse than Veronica, Kumar?
I think I'm going to say yes, because I think maybe technically it's better, the actual production, the staging, the sets they built, etc. All those things are better, but I got less entertainment from it.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm saying this. It's worse than Veronica.
Okay.
It's as tacky and poorly... It's as tacky as Veronica, and yet it's not... Veronica is a horror movie.
Yeah.
Right, and I guess a sleaze fest.
Yeah.
Fat Slags is also a sleaze fest, but it's meant to be a comedy.
Yeah.
But Veronica is funny.
Yes. Yes.
And Fat Slags isn't.
Yes.
Fat Slags is worse than Veronica.
Okay.
So I hope you'll enjoy henceforth our new segment, Worse Than Fat Slags.
Yeah, I'm going to change the name of the segment. We will decide when it comes to it. We'll make that decision.
Terrible.
Maybe we'll have to run both. Okay, adaptation. No, I think the comic has a clear view. Again, for me, it's all about what's the world that they're living in, and that's a world where everybody's okay with the Fat Slags and everybody wants to have sex with them. And this is and only people in the South are disgusted by them. I think this movie's confused about that. No, it's not a good. I don't know, and it's not. It's actually. The idea, this is a strip that you can't make a movie of. You know what I mean? It's just like, you can't make a movie of this. It would not, how could you distribute it? It would be too filthy and gross and all that kind of stuff. Nobody would pick up, nobody would do it. Nobody would pick it up. So...
Yeah, maybe. It wouldn't look like this, that's for sure. With these terrible jokes. Like
yes, the point I'm getting to is, the comic is a lot grosser.
Yes,
right?
Sure.
It's a lot crasser, and the movie's not like that. The movie's almost trying to be feel-good at moments.
Yes. That's the big problem.
That's like the opposite of what the comic is. The comic is never there to make you feel good. Like, I hope they make it to the top. No, that's not what it is. So I think it fails in getting the intent of the comic.
You can't make them. That's it. The characters. They're not supposed to be sympathetic. And yet we're supposed to find them sympathetic. They're not supposed to be the heroes of the comic.
Yeah.
And yet, in the film, they're the heroes, right? They're supposed to be in the North, and they're not in the North for any of the film, or just very briefly at the start and the end.
Yeah.
Even fans of the comic didn't like it.
Yeah.
You know, they don't even have the right fucking accent.
Right.
They don't have Geordie accents.
Right.
You know, but perhaps the best person to say something about the adaptation would be Graham Dury.
Okay.
They'd got a proper screenwriter, an English guy working in Hollywood, who we met. And the thing about the characters, this is now Graham imitating the screenwriter, is they're abusive, they like drinking and they eat a lot. They're like everybody else there, though, looking for love. Okay. This stunned me and my colleagues into silence.
Okay.
They're not looking for love.
Yeah.
He laughs. They're like the Terminator. Yeah. They're relentless. They eat and fuck and nothing else.
Yeah.
We told him, you've got the wrong end of the stick here, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, have we ever done a 6 thumbs down before?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, I'm not sure.
No, because even Veronica, I gave it yay for adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
I still think it's the best, closest adaptation we've ever had on the show. I don't think we've had a
sextuple nay. But it doesn't mean that. I mean, correlation. Sure. I mean, this is the worst film I've ever seen. It felt like time had stopped. I had a face like stone the whole way through.
Yeah.
Alright, sextuple nay. There we go. I'll check the list and see if it's ever been done before.
Okay, so please like, rate, review, subscribe. Please leave us a comment on Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky. All those links are in the show notes. Please email us at the email address, which is also in the show notes. And please join our Patreon at patreon.com/comicbookmovieoblivion, all one word, to help us out with hosting fees and DVDs and books and stuff like that. Okay, next week, we are going to cover The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp from 1943.
Another British film.
Another British film, hopefully,
It's
on
guaranteed.
the other end of the spectrum.
It's got to be better. Nothing could be worse.
Yeah. It's on YouTube. There's a very clean copy on YouTube if you choose to check it. It was restored by Martin Scorsese, I think like 10 years ago or something. Or he was part of the team that helped restore it. And it's like close to 3 hours, so make sure you book in the time for it if you are keen to follow along and watch it. And that's probably all the setup we need for that one.